Hi ladies and gentlemen, today's the 2nd of January 2014 and I remember putting up a video, I don't know, I guess it was probably in the fall sometime, somewhere in there, and said I didn't really want to do much more of this, and you've heard me say that a lot of times. Well, on that particular one, I don't remember which one it was, there was a comment on there where this individual said, "You can't help yourself. You're driven to it. Your heart's in it. You have to do it. You can't avoid it because it's your passion." Well, I suppose there's some truth to that. We all like to think that we have something important to contribute. And in fact, I think that's true. Unfortunately, through the school system and through the water system, through social engineering in general, as most of you that I see on a regular basis understand, the creativity of people is being thwarted, even when they have something that is exciting and new and uplifting. It's usually met with a great deal of opposition. Why do I open up with that? Well, primarily because, as I've said all along, and I hear this so often now from commentators and radio personalities, blog talks, things like that, that there's a spiritual war going on. There really is. That's really what this is. And it's going to come into the physical all the time. As a matter of fact, a lot of people try to separate the spiritual from the physical. But you really can't do that, because they exist together here. Okay? For those of you who are Bible readers, you may remember when Abraham planted a tree, and I think I've mentioned this before. He pitched his tent and he planted a tree. That's the other thing that you have to get elsewhere. But he pitched his tent and planted a tree halfway between the cities of Bethel, which meant God's house, and Ai, which meant, the world. And he's right in between, so there's a balance, and we have to remember to keep that balance. But there are forces in the world today, and they are satanic Luciferian forces. And if you go back through my videos, Divide the Word 1 and 2 is a good example of this. These evil forces are out there to cut off our connection to who we really are, number one, where we come from, and the fact that we do have a God that is our Father and our Mother. It's our heavenly parents. And this connection that we have with them, it's been a war for a long time to keep us from reaching out and getting that. So I've talked about the chemtrails and the water and the food and all the poisons that we have that are shutting us down to keep us from getting this light that's coming in, that's going to change us, and will also change the evil ones, and they don't want that, so they're doing everything they can to stop it. And I've done a couple of videos on that. I won't waste a lot of time. But the very first thing I wanted to say is that, so that you know that I am aware of this battle that's going on, this warfare upon mankind, to shut us down and to take our minds off the things that are really important and give us instead a very artificial environment. And we're made to believe that that's what the real world is and what real eternity is, and it's not. Okay? Families, loved ones, those are the things that are important, and we need to keep those forefront in everything we do. And don't be fooled. Don't perish for lack of knowledge. As I've said before, the worst thing you can do is stay asleep and not make yourself aware of things. Having said all that, I did have a few things I wanted to bring up. The first is about Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. I've told you before that people like him, General Boykin, Lieutenant Colonel Schaefer, myself, former SEAL Ben Smith, all of us get attacked and sometimes on a very personal level. Our personal lives are our business. It's how we stand for liberty and freedom that really matters. And that's why I don't get upset about homosexuals. Here I go diverging again. Because what you do in your bedroom and in your personal time is your business, as long as you don't try to, any of us, whatever we do in our bedrooms, not try to push on others. Some might say, well, Roy, you did that. Well, not really. I was on the defensive. I came back in my specific case because I had been attacked, and it was on a constitutional basis. See, I wasn't out there looking for it. It actually came to me. So, showing love and respect in public is a good thing. Kissing, as long as you're not doing the deep throat type of stuff. Normal affection is a good thing to show in public. It is good. But the other stuff, of course, we need to keep under wraps. Well, getting back to Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. I don't know how they got it, and the link is below in the description box so you can go look at this. They got a letter that he sent, or he's not even admitting the letter, and I'm not saying he has to. And frankly, if he did write it, I think it's great, and you'll see why in a minute. But he talked about a porn star. Now you're going, whoa, what's that? Well, you'll see. This man is in combat. He's a commander of a battalion. He's a man. He's a red-blooded American man. Okay? He's not a transgender. He's not a metro. He's certainly not, homosexual. He's a man that loves a woman. And this letter was very intimate to his wife. And you'll see the details on it below. But the point is that what did they hook onto? And I don't know how they got this. They probably got it out of his emails. No doubt NSA went in there and pulled it out to discredit this man. Gave it to, this reporter, this piece of filth that wrote this story. Because this man, Alan West, was writing this letter to his wife and said, God gave you to me and authorizes you to be my porn star. Something to that effect. Will you be my porn star? I won't take no for an answer. It was a beautiful letter for men who felt this passion, this love on a spiritual and a physical level for this woman that was his wife, that is his wife. And they want to try to demonize that. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't wake up to what these people are doing, and that's why you need to get behind people like Alan West. Don't listen to these other things that are below the surface, these personal issues. How do they stand on the Constitution, on liberty, on freedom, on life, on love? That's what's important. We all have these little small idiosyncrasies, but how do we treat others? Do we tear him down, especially, this guy that's doing that to Colonel Alan West? What would you think about somebody like that exposing you to the entire world? Actually, it's probably a good thing for Colonel West, and I hope he looks at it this way, because it does show that he's a red-blooded American man. And that when he was away from his wife, that the one person that was on his mind more than any other, of course his children too, but he wasn't out there, running around with other women or whatever. And if your personal life involves that, that's fine. My point is that this man was sending a letter of devotion, admiration, love, and passion to his wife. And he's being vilified for the verbiage that he used, which was nobody else's business in the first place. Good on you, sir. Good on you, Colonel West. I do hope you and I meet someday. Okay. Fukushima. I got to go there. I've been on this since it happened in 2011. A lot of people laughed at me and all of that. People that are getting different types of cancers and thyroid problems in young children, especially on the West Coast. Some of the other things that have happened, they laugh at you because that's silly. That's so far away. And most people don't even understand. Yeah, okay, the government and the people out there who are for all this nuclear power are going to lower that. Ann Coulter, radiation's good for you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, USS Ronald Reagan. I hope that you're catching this in the news. You may not be. USS Ronald Reagan is an aircraft carrier. It was there at Fukushima trying to help at the time of the accident. And at least 70 of the sailors on that aircraft carrier have come down with cancer. Okay? So anybody who thinks that radiation, some types of radiation are good, and I'm not going to go into what they are here because it'll take too much time. But the radiation that comes out of a nuclear meltdown or a nuclear weapon is not good for you. I'm sorry, Ann Coulter, you're wrong. All right, so we've got that situation. These sailors have a suit against TEPCO, the company that runs the facility, and of course the Japanese government for this cover-up, saying it was safe when it was not. But the real question I have here, this was a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier with radiation monitoring equipment. I smell something really fishy here. Why didn't they warn those sailors? They're taking the water in that was cut from the sea to do their bathing and their drinking and their cooking and all that stuff. They desalinate it, but it won't take away the radiation. Plus, sweeping up this nuclear snow off the deck. My gosh, I cannot believe the officers in the Navy are that ill-trained. I don't believe this. I just don't. Not that I don't believe the story that the sailors did get irradiated. They did, and they're sick from it. But the fact that those in their command didn't understand the situation and weren't taking the proper precautions, I'm just flabbergasted. Anyway, so there's another evidence that this thing is serious. Okay, the upper, in the northern hemisphere, we've been having these background radiation readings that keep going up. And remember, the U.S. government, the EPA, lowered the danger levels for radioactivity. What I mean by lowered is they actually raised them. In other words, if you could take 5, they said, well, and they said before that was the danger level, was at 5 as an example, so that they didn't have to address the issues. They said, well, now it's 100. The safe level is actually 100. It's not 5. Now, that's an oversimplification, but that's what they did. Instead of telling people of the danger, they just raised what they considered to be, what had been long considered to be the danger levels. They just raised it by hundreds of percentage points, sometimes thousands. Interesting, isn't it? They really care about you. 14 million packages of potassium iodide have just been purchased by the Department of Health and Human Services. You can bet they're not for you. Okay, they're going to be for the continuity of government people, they're going to be for the police, they're going to be for the fire people, they're going to be for the government bureaucrats, the military, the DHS. If you folks think the FEMA is going to take care of you when this radiation, and it's going to go up even more than it has. How do I know that? Well, you just need to understand how this stuff works, number one. Number two, watch the news. Big wave of debris from Fukushima, from the tsunami, irradiated debris is coming to the north, actually almost all of the west coast of North America. How much will go where, I don't know. It'll depend on the currents. But we had this big thing in Monterey Bay here just a few weeks ago where they had this big feeding frenzy, the whales and the dolphins and all that, at a time of year where they don't do that. They're not supposed to be there then. But they were, because something drove the phytoplankton and the anchovies, I think it was, sardines, whatever they were, into that area at a time of the year where they're not normally there. But they were obviously trying to escape this radiation that they could feel, this danger in the water. Well, this whole thing is moving now. It's right at the west coast of the United States. Alaska, that whole region there. I've been talking about this for a long time. Again, people laugh at you and think you're silly. Hey, right now there's steam leaving from the reactor number 3, and they're having homeless people. Homeless people? They're going to pay homeless people minimum wage to go in there and clean up? Why? Because nobody else is going to do it. That's why. Do you realize what will happen if you make a mistake and bring too many of those spent fuel rods into close proximity. Critical mass will be reached very quickly, and there'll be another accident worse than the first one, because this time it's all going to go out into the ocean. They're going to have to evacuate most of Japan, and I've even heard scientists say that they may have to evacuate the west coast of the United States because of the radioactive plume that'll be coming that way. So why did the government get all of this potassium iodide, which by the way is not the best treatment to keep your thyroid from picking it up? We're talking about the radioactive iodine isotope that's coming across. The radioactive iodine is absorbed into your thyroid very quickly. So the idea is to take iodine to saturate the thyroid so it's not looking for more iodine to pick up, and it won't pick up the radioactive iodine. But you can't do that once you're already exposed. I mean, you should still take it, but you're really not doing it the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to saturate that thyroid prior to exposure. Most of us aren't going to do that. Even the DHS is going to do that, and you guys don't even know. And you think you're going to make it through this by being our slave masters. I see this degeneration of the people everywhere. And it saddens me, as you all know. I see it on the TV. I see it in the news. I see it on billboards. I see it, at restaurants. I see it everywhere. It's not just going out and relaxing anymore. It's being almost to the point of being disgusting about how blind the people are. It's frustrating. Because of lack of knowledge, the people perish. And you are going to perish. That's the plan. Those of you who don't make any preparation. The biggest preparation, what's the number one preparation you can make? Being aware. Choosing the right side. Doing the right thing. Choosing the good instead of the bad. Life instead of death. Love instead of hate. Light instead of darkness. But no, we're not doing that. And I've been at this thing on YouTube for how long now? Well, I've talked a little bit about the meteors coming in. We're going through the ice and debris trail, and there's been some naysayers out there who are saying, "Oh, that's not such a big deal. All you need is one of those in the right place, and you're going to have a problem landing. The big chunks." And I've told people to be prepared for all kinds of disasters, whether man-made or natural, or just you lose your job. And a lot of people now, they're saying, well, what should we get? Well, if you can afford a really nice food supply and all those things, get that. But if you're stuck for time, money, those things, 25 to 50 pound sacks of white rice, 25 to 50 pound sacks of pinto beans or black beans or something like that. That's a perfect meal, protein. You get a lot of other nutrients, so it'll keep you alive. As I said on an email I sent out to some of my friends, you're going to fart a lot, but at least you'll be alive to fart, okay? Then you'll want to make sure you have water. Have a good absolute 2 micron filter at the least, something you can power with gravity, not something you don't have to have a pump for. You're going to want to have salt, okay, that's important, and raw sugar. Those are the basic staples that you need to stay alive. And then, of course, and I'm going to say here on YouTube, you better have a weapon. I suggest, there are different things you can get, but I'm going to make a suggestion here. A good 9mm handgun, a good 12-gauge shotgun, and a high-quality, full-tang sheath knife are really absolutely important tools to have. Not only for defending yourself, but for, taking care of game or food that you can get if you need it. Okay. The meteors aren't the only problem. We've got, like I said, other man-made and natural disasters going on. I've been watching a lot of the sun activity that's been happening and how it's affecting our shields, the Earth's shields, electromagnetic shields. And there is a really good possibility, I would think, that some of the solar activity is causing some pressure that's causing these volcanoes to act. And of course, there are different other gravitational forces at work as well. But anyway, we have a volcano erupting in Italy, one in Indonesia, one in El Salvador, one in the Canary Islands. You've got, the caldera in Yellowstone that's all heating up, but some of these are active and spewing out now. Are these the end times? Well, the real key for what we're supposed to do is watch the sign of the times, stay aware. And that's the thing, watch, be aware, the cognitive energy, the cognitive response is to see it, to observe it, to know what's happening. And at least at that awareness stage, you can take whatever precautions you deem necessary. Wow, this is a potpourri of stuff this time. Obamacare, it's designed to wreck us. It's designed to take our wealth. It's designed to get our information, to be another reason to jail those who don't comply. What can we do about all this? The illegal and unconstitutional dictates that are coming out of the executive branch now, not to mention the stuff the bureaucrats do. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for non-compliance. How do we react to this? We act. We don't comply. We resist. Okay? People lining up, they were told this. If you register your guns, they're going to take them. They can see them taking them in New York. We can see them taking them in California. And those people in Connecticut line up to register their guns. You know what? I mean, we just are a bunch of sheep, aren't we? We're no better than the Germans were when the Nazis were getting in control. And it's going to end badly, ladies and gentlemen. Very badly. I thought I better bring this up because a lot of people aren't making the connection. Remember the Boston bombing? Tamerlan Tsarnaev, we found out, of course, was in fact a CIA operative, and the FBI had been using him also. They knew who he was. That whole situation, them pretending they didn't know who the brothers was an act. But we did find out that he went to Chechnya several times. Was sent there as an agent for whatever purposes by the CIA. We know that Al-Qaeda, be them Chechens or anybody else, are funded by the intelligence agencies of the West, the CIA in particular, and trained. The whole Syrian thing, that came out really strongly, and if you were paying attention at all, that our government was supporting Al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria and elsewhere. But the point is, it really came out at that point in time. The whole thing with Benghazi, and then the attempt to go to war in Syria, to be on the side of the same people that are slaughtering Christians, whole families, young girls. What an evil government we have. Anyway, back to Russia. The Russians stood against our attempts to invade Syria, and Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia said that if they stood in the way, if the Russians stood away, that they'd pay them back with terrorist bombings in Russia. And it's funny that this hardly gets out. And of course, in the mainstream media, it doesn't get out at all, or very, very little, and they don't make the connections to show what's going on here. Saudi Arabia is funding these Chechens now, helping the CIA, and they are bombing the Russians. That's who's doing this, the Saudi Arabians and Western intelligence services through the Chechen rebels. Al-Qaeda, that section of Al-Qaeda, okay? That's what's happening here. And the Russians know this, and they talk about it. This is talked about in the foreign press, but you just don't hear it here in the West. Saudi Arabia, another thing's come out. House Bill 428. You all need to call your congressman and tell them to support this. What is House Bill 428? Well, a congressman from North Carolina has introduced this. I'm sorry, I forgot his name already. That's because these things come to me as I'm talking. I didn't really prepare to talk about this. House Bill 428 is going to require President Obama to declassify 28 pages of a report to show who the financial support nations were for 9/11, the attack on us. And I'm just going to say it's obviously Saudi Arabia. Most of the supposed terrorists on 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia, yet we go attack Afghanistan and Iraq, you know. And you can see now why, because the Saudis are trying to gain control and the West is trying to gain control. But at any rate, this 28-page report will tell us who funded it. And what I want to point out is this. Who did Bush fly out of? First of all, who did the Bushes have as business partners? The Saudi Arabians in particular, and some specifics were the bin Ladens. And the Bush administration, when nobody else could fly after 9/11, the Bush administration made sure that the bin Ladens could fly out of the country, Saudis. The connections are obvious. It was an inside job done with the help of Saudi Arabia and I'm not sure who else. At least I wouldn't want to say at this point in time. But you need to call up House Bill 428 and let's see if we can get this exposed. Good luck, I know, but it would be nice. I think I've covered everything here pretty much. Let me just look at my notes. Oh, how could I have forgotten this one? You know, in Italy, there was a 60-year-old guy who basically took an 11-year-old boy out of a backyard and had forced sex with him. And now that 60-year-old has been exonerated because the 11-year-old said he was in love with the man. Now, this actually was going on in Britain, too, if you'll remember. In Britain, they have this big thing because of the Jimmy Savile thing that, you know, older men can have things with 13-year-olds. That's no longer considered pedophilia. Do you see who's taking charge and twisting us here? They go after somebody like Alan West, who has a passion for his wife, and rightly so, God sanctioned, and now they're picking on that, and they're going and giving all of these pedophilia rights to all these people around, you know, everywhere. Homosexual rights, all that. And again, I have nothing against the homosexuals if you keep it there, but the point is, you know, this is a militancy, and it's coming from a very evil place. Okay? So, Italy did that, said the guy didn't commit a crime because the boy loved him. In California, transgender bathrooms, and the boys and girls can decide which bathroom they're going to use. You people in California really want to stay with those degenerates in that state? I'm just amazed. As I said, this pedophilia thing is probably the biggest sign when it rears its head that Luciferian Satanists are involved, and it's really, really bad stuff. And wherever it's connected, you need to shun it and do your best to turn on it and destroy it. Yes, destroy it. Just like they did in Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, just like that. Another example, you may remember the Surgeon General jostling elders, saying they were going to teach 5- and 6-year-olds in kindergarten how to masturbate. Yeah, you go look it up. You guys who watch this stuff know that I'm telling you the truth. And they're trying to make this, everywhere now. Common Core, all this sexual education and all that. So what do we do then? Again, got to know your enemy. Got to be non-compliant with illegal, unconstitutional, I don't want to call them laws, dictates. I'll put it that way. Resist to the best of your ability, and if they come to take your guns, be prepared to fight back. Don't give them up. Not just turn them over. Bad idea. Because I'm going to get you one way or the other anyway. Okay, so I guess that's about all. I may have missed something. I don't really do a lot of preparation. I sometimes write a few notes down just so I'll touch on the key points. The basic thing is that, like I've always said, prepare physically, prepare mentally, prepare spiritually. bond up your love with your loved ones and your friends, because that's the only thing that's going to carry us through this. I always say I don't know when I'll see you again, and that goes for this time as well. I'm not quoting a whole lot of scripture, actually none of it this time, although I did mention Sodom and Gomorrah. But the evil in this day and age is beyond anything that we have seen before. The good in this age, here we go. Jesus said, "Greater things will you do than I have done, because I go to the Father." Wow. So it's both sides, right? But we're going to suffer a lot under this thing if we don't turn it around. And as you know, I don't think we're going to be able to. There's another scripture and it says that the beast made war upon the saints and prevailed. And they know that. As I said, the Bible is there as the evils. Basically, it's their operations order, just like the Bible should be ours. They just do it from the evil side. So this is a crazy thing that's going on, but choose the right, choose good, choose life, choose liberty, choose love, and shun anything that isn't in there. Basically, shun fear. And again, am I a fearmonger? No, I'm warning you. I'm giving you the information, as many are like me, so that you can remain living, remain with life, liberty,